The U.S. government closed its formal study of UFOs in late 1969.
UFO Reporting Center?
We got a call. He saw 5 distinct lights in a triangular pattern.
Over the years, there have been several questions about our world that have baffled us. These questions have left us with a sense of wonder and intrigue about the nature of our world and its many components. As you would imagine, the question of whether we are alone in this universe has always been top of the minds of many experts, and even non-experts. The premise is simple. If our universe is so vast, then it would be pretty arrogant for us to believe that we are the only ones in it. So far, most of the official sources we have to go by claim that there is no evidence of other species or aliens being in our universe. Nevertheless, there is also evidence that suggests that this isn't necessarily the entire story. Whether it is testimonies from regular people or commentaries from military officials who claim otherwise, there have been those who remained adamant in their belief that aliens are real. And not just real, that these aliens have indeed visited our planet. As it turns out, the FBI itself could hold some secrets about alien encounters and their implications for our world. But before we even understand these implications, it's important to get a handle on the evidence that's been shared. So, join us on this journey as we delve into the mountain of proof shared about alien encounters on our planet. How clandestine government agencies work. If you ask anyone with even a remote knowledge, the question of whether we are alone in this universe has been one that has haunted many experts for decades. Ever since humans were made aware of the fact that there is a world beyond our stars, the question has remained simple. Are there more life forms out there that we don't know? For most proponents of this theory, it's really simple. Our universe is so vast, and there is no way that there won't be other species and alien life forms. I mean, think about it. When most of us believed that there were only 7 planets, we already had speculations that aliens existed. Now, it's become pretty obvious that we have much more than just 7 planets hurtling around our universe. So, it goes without saying that we'd have other life forms beyond just human beings. In 1961, humanity achieved a major milestone after Neil Armstrong and the crew of Apollo 11 became the first men to land on the moon. This milestone marked the victory of the United States in a conflict that has now been known as the space race. However, it was much more than that. It also showed that mankind was now ready to explore the vast expanse of outer space and, if the need arises, make contact with other life forms. Since the first moon landing, there have been several other missions into outer space. However, while most of those have focused on examining the feasibility of establishing human colonies on other planets, only a few have focused on the goal of trying to find other life forms. That said, it should also be noted that many people on Earth also claim to have found proof of alien life. Some claim to have made direct contact with these alien life forms, while others claim to have seen unidentified flying objects, or UFOs. For a lot of these people, the major issue appears to be the fact that there isn't much by way of proof that their UFO sightings were indeed accurate. Nevertheless, they have stuck to their stories and have been unyielding. Of course, as we all know, the fact that there isn't conclusive proof of something doesn't mean it can't be real. Anyways, away from civilian experiences and what may or may not be true, another thing that appears to be sticking time and again is the fact that the government has some knowledge of alien life and civilizations. In fact, the moment you hear people talk about the possibility of aliens existing or interacting with humans, the general belief tends to be that the government must be aware. Direction. Now, this theory isn't entirely unfounded. Over the years, many people have come out to assert that the government, particularly institutions such as the Central Intelligence Agency and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, know much more about our world than they are letting on. These investigative bodies are tasked with scouring the Earth and identifying strange occurrences. From there, their job is to probe these occurrences further, to see if there's much more to them than meets the eye. So, as many believe, they should be the first to know if there is any such thing as alien life or alien activity on our planet. Now, to be fair, these agencies have had a pretty lengthy track record of being secretive. Their activities tend to be shrouded in a lot of controversy as well, and all of this has only fueled the rumors that they should be aware of alien activity going on this planet. That said, it is also important to understand why these agencies are the way they are. For one, agencies like the FBI and CIA tend to keep a lot of secrets from the rest of the public because they believe it is in the interest of public safety and national security. If people are to have insider knowledge of some of these secrets, there really is no predicting their actions. And soon enough, some of these actions could have unintended consequences that completely alter the balance of our country. At the same time, security and investigative agencies tend to also be secretive about their activities because they believe it is the only way to protect the country's interests. If everyone were to learn about, say, alien life, they could share these secrets with America's enemies. And it should go without saying that such an incident would be very much untenable for us. Nevertheless, while it is understood that our investigative agencies need to be secretive, some have also called their motives and the extent to which they hoard secrets into question. Weird as it may sound, the FBI has actually been the agency that has come under the most fire for its clandestine operations. Formed back in 1908, the FBI is the domestic intelligence agency of the United States. It is also the country's major law enforcement agency, and ever since it was founded, the FBI has acted as the country's major counterterrorism and judicial arm. As an agency, the FBI has dealt with the very worst of the very worst. The agency's operations have spanned several decades. Although it is generally limited to events that occur within the United States, it is equipped to pursue hundreds of categories of crimes, but under one strict caveat: everything needs to have occurred within the United States for them to be enforceable. The moment an event is said to have happened outside of the country, it basically becomes the CIA's problem. That is, if the government chooses to do something about it, of course. Anyways, when it was founded, the FBI was basically saddled with the responsibility of investigating everything from criminal activity to government oversight, and much more. I'm pretty sure that no one believed the agency would end up looking into things like alien activity. So, you can imagine how shocking these revelations must now be. The Guy Hotel Memo. Now that we understand what the FBI does, and how it has managed to become this secretive behemoth that we've come to know, let's take a look at some of the smoking guns that conclude the agency's understanding and knowledge of alien activity. A few years ago, the FBI released a treasure trove of information, some of which have become rather popular. However, among the most popular documents out there is the Guy Hotel Memo. So, for a little bit of context, Guy L. Hotel was born around 1902. He was a graduate of George Washington University in Washington, D.C., where he was a star football player. Following his education, Guy entered the FBI as a special agent in 1934, and by December 1936, he was named acting head of the FBI's Washington field office. Guy was eventually appointed special agent in charge the following May and served until March 1941. Then he was reappointed special agent in charge in February 1943 and served until 1951, when he took a position in the Identification Division. He retired in 1955, although thanks to one particular memo, he has now become one of the most infamous FBI agents. Why's that? Well, back in March 1950, Guy wrote a memo while he was head of the FBI's Washington office. The memo itself was directed at FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover and was both recorded and indexed in the agency's records. In all, the subject of this memo was pretty extraordinary. It apparently related to a story told to an FBI agent by a third party who claimed that an unnamed Air Force investigator had reported discovering 3 flying saucers in New Mexico. Amongst other things, the memo had the following detail written verbatim. They, the saucers, were described as being circular in shape with raised centers, approximately 50 feet in diameter. Each one was occupied by 3 bodies of human shape, but only 3 feet tall, dressed in metallic cloth of a very fine texture. Each body was bandaged in a manner similar to the blackout suits used by speed flyers and test pilots. In many ways, the description here appears to resemble some of the representations we see of aliens, whether in sketches or even in movies. In fact, this may be the inspiration that these representations glean from when describing aliens. Besides this, the memo also pointed out a claim from a separate informant, who claimed that the flying saucers had been found because a high-powered radar operated by the FBI had interfered with the saucer's controlling mechanism. Then, it ends by saying that the FBI agent in question didn't attempt any additional evaluation of the situation. The Hotel memo was actually first released publicly in the late 70s, and as soon as it became available for public consumption, it immediately went viral. The FBI chose to catalog the memo and hold it for safekeeping, but it soon released it, as well as several other interesting pieces of documentation, in April 2021 as part of the Vault Disclosure Initiative. So, you might be asking yourself, what happened to Guy and the agent who claimed to have seen a UFO? Well, we couldn't find information about when Guy died. However, like many other things, the FBI has come out to claim that the memo wasn't founded in any evidence. In a note describing the memo, the agency explained, "It's the most popular file in the FBI vault, our high-tech electronic reading room housing various bureau records released under the Freedom of Information Act. Over the past 2 years, this file has been viewed nearly 1 million times. Yet, it is only a single page, relaying an unconfirmed report that the FBI never even followed up on." Despite this, there have been many who strongly believe that the memo, as well as the discovery it described, must have been true. If there is one thing we can be sure about concerning the FBI, it's that the agency will always go the extra mile to protect what it believes to be a secret with national security implications. And if the discovery described in Guy's memo was true, then there's no reason to believe that the agency won't have buried this secret as well. The memo itself didn't describe what happened to these aliens after they were found, but we can only imagine what must have transpired between these extraterrestrial beings and the government officials who found them. Ordinarily, you would expect that the FBI would have looked into this discovery more carefully. However, several factors could have blocked them from making progress. At the same time, the prospects of interference are always present. The Air Force, Department of State Services, and much more could easily stonewall the FBI in its investigative approach and lead to more friction. Each of these agencies would have its specific objective for the saucers if they were found, and this means that they would most likely have entered into some terrible conflict over who would be allowed to take the lead. But what if the FBI indeed looked into this alien discovery and just chose not to reveal anything to members of the general public? Well, I guess that only time will tell. Now, although it appears that the FBI didn't do much with the information in this memo, there is still a lot of evidence to point to the fact that it has been on the lookout for information about alien sightings for a very long time. For instance, back in 1948, Walter Haut, a high-ranking officer with the Roswell Army Airfield, or RAF, issued a press release claiming that the RAAF had discovered a flying disc close to Roswell, New Mexico. Corroborating Haut's statement, Robert Porter, a flight engineer with the RAAF, was part of the crew who loaded the discovered vehicle into a flight bound for Fort Worth Army Airfield. According to him, the vehicle was lightweight and not too large to fit into the trunk of a car. And that was the only description that he gave of the vehicle. Before we get too deep into this, it is worth noting that the military did eventually come out to claim that the vehicle wasn't a flying saucer. Instead, they claimed that it was a military balloon that was launched in 1947 as part of Project Mogul, an Air Force project that involved sending balloons into high altitudes in order to detect Soviet nuclear weapon tests. According to the official story by the military, researchers at Alamogordo Army Airfield in Otero, New Mexico, launched a trail of these balloons and lost contact with a few. Eventually, one of them landed in the yard of one Mac Brezel, the man who claimed to have found the disc in the first place. Although the military stayed adamant that this discovery, later dubbed the Roswell incident, was no more than a case of mistaken identity, several people involved in the cleanup have also asserted that what they discovered at this ranch was indeed an alien spaceship. A radio station based in Roswell that carried the story even got inundated by several additional calls from people who said they saw something similar. But, for some reason, none of these other stories ever got the type of acclaim that the initial one got. Trails of evidence like this continue to pile up when you think about it. And at the moment, you can just imagine how much information the FBI could have buried over the years. In ACT, a report from back in 2011 claims that the FBI was so overwhelmed by sightings of flying saucers in the 40s that agents regularly destroyed reports because there was literally no filing pace to put them all in. Citing a policy in a memo from Director Hoover in 1949, the report paints a pretty vivid picture of what must have happened. As it is written, this memo, as well as documents of UFOs compiled by agents after witness statements, stated that the FBI office in San Antonio destroyed UFO reports on the grounds that they arrived in great numbers. Both reports of interest to the FBI and those that weren't were destroyed, so you can imagine the treasure trove of details that must have been included. The long road to transparency. As things stand, it appears that the only way the FBI can reveal the secrets it holds will be if someone high-ranking enough compels the agency to be more transparent. It could be the director of the agency, or maybe even the president. Someone who ranks high and is in a position of authority, as well as who is capable of making things happen, could theoretically order the FBI to reveal the information that the agency holds. And that could usher in a world of even more knowledge. Still, even that might not necessarily be possible. As it stands, the FBI already has several special interests that it would want to protect, and there is every reason to believe that even someone in the White House might be unable to cause the agency to reverse its course. What evidence? Well, here's the thing. This isn't the first time that the subject of the FBI being compelled to reveal its information is being broached. In fact, Jimmy Carter, the President of the United States between 1977 and 1981, actually gave it a try. Before becoming president, Carter served as a state senator and the governor of his home state of Georgia. And, as records state, he actually had his own encounter with a UFO sighting. This sighting, which ended up being very disputed, lit a fire in Carter. He claimed on the campaign trail that he would raise the level of government transparency if elected, and the moment he assumed office, he actually had plans to do this, essentially reveal the darkest secrets off government agencies to the public. Sadly, this would never be done. And according to those with insider knowledge, this is because the FBI and the CIA understood the impact of what he was trying to do. So, they had several meetings in which they managed to convince him to backtrack. If President Carter had succeeded, maybe our knowledge of our world would have been much different than it is right now. The only hope is that someone with enough will eventually gets into a position of power and forces these agencies to do the right thing. Outro. The quest for alien life continues, and just as it has been for years, those with enough conviction will continue to search for the truth until it is revealed. Still, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you believe that the FBI really holds secrets of alien activity? Drop a comment in the comment section and let us hear your thoughts.